Hello, friends. Good afternoon. I think it's time to start the webinar on uh, business houses, M&As, and competition. We will have a presentation by my colleague Beena Saraswati, and then we have three very eminent panelists, Dr. Augustine Peter, Mr. Amol Kulkarni, and Professor Pulak Mishra. So I will introduce the panelists when we are about to invite them to speak. But I just want to sort of get started with the Beena's presentation, and I think the background to this discussion is very interesting, in the sense that business houses, leading business houses in India have attracted a lot of attention in the early years of independence. There was a concern whether there is a too much concentration of economic power in the hands of few business houses. So there were a number of regulations, including the MRTP Act, were brought in to check that concentration of economic power. But those were the heydays of regulated economy, and India was a closed economy, so to say, because imports were very restricted. And so these business houses had this strategy of virtually operating in every sector. So they were not only business houses, but also conglomerates. They operated in different sectors because competitiveness was not a target. It was target was to spread their wings and control the economy. But over time, after the liberalization of the Indian economy, competitiveness also became an issue. I mean, if they were not competitive, they would not survive even in their domestic market. Forget about international market. So after that, there has been a lot of restructuring of Indian industry, and in particular, the business houses tried to make their companies or their enterprises more efficient, more competitive, by focusing on core competencies. So a lot of fat or flab was shed, unrelated activities they kind of exited from, and made or tried to make the remaining businesses more competitive. So M&As have been employed very extensively as a part of this industrial restructuring. So I think Beena has done extensive work on this subject, and I'm sure she would be able to share with us some, some overview of what has been happening in the business houses through M&As and how it has affected the competition situation in India, and then what are the implications of that for policy. So with that very brief introduction, I want to just invite Beena to share her presentation to get started. Beena, over to you.
Thank you, sir. And thanks to all the discussants for accepting our request. And this is part of the ICSR research project on M&As and business group we have undertaken in ISID. Today, I will try to focus more on M&A related part, because in this project, actually, we were focusing on both business group side as well as M&A side. Business group is actually a new area for me. I did not work earlier on this, so I was trying to understand what is business group also. I'll start my presentation. I will be speaking about these major aspects. One is first starting with the introduction, context and concepts. Then business groups in India. I will try to give a brief introduction, brief overview. then concentration of economic power among top business groups, and then coming to M&As undertaken by business groups and how it is affecting the product market competition. Then the overall context, sir has rightly pointed out already. There has been a rising disparity in the distribution of income and wealth over the years in India, and one of the major reasons is said to be the industrial policy. Okay, one of the major reasons for this unequal distribution was considered to be the industrial development strategy adopted in India. And there were apprehensions on the disproportionate holding of wealth by top business groups in India during the post-independence period. And also there was a discussion on the business power versus economic power, because business power in ISID, Professor Goelsar's study has clearly pointed out the not only Goelsar's study, other studies also like R.K. Hasari, Asim Chowdhury, and others have pointed out the business power is a more quantitative concept, and we can measure to a certain extent. But the economic power is unable to. It's a qualitative concept, and we cannot measure that. Then consequently, there have been several attempts during the MRTP regime also to measure the extent of concentration of economic power in the hands of big business groups in India in order to control the accumulation of wealth in few hands. And MRTP Act 1969 was introduced in this background, and which was aiming at the prevention of concentration of economic power to the common detriment, controlling monopolies, monopolistic trade practices, and restrictive trade practices, and unfair trade practices, UTPs. And gradually, there has been apprehensions on the functioning of MRTP Act 2. And there were a lot of studies in that background. Professor Goelsar's study also come in that background, which was showing that there has been an increasing amount of concentration of economic assets among a few big business groups. And in 1973, EPW also written about this aspect and said that MRTP Commission has reached a dead end in the absence of a clear approach to curb the growth of large business houses, and viewed it turned out to be a sanctioning authority. And all this led to the amendment of MRTP Act in 1991 in September. And thereby the first two objectives of the Act de-emphasized, which includes the concentration of economic power. Later, the new Act, that is the Competition Act 2002, implemented in India from 2009 onwards, and for M&As it was from 2011 June onwards. And in this new competition regime, there has been a shift of focus from economic concentration or controlling monopolies to promoting competition. And the Competition Act follows a rule of reason approach. That means each and every M&A is assessed to find out whether it is likely to create any competition effect on the relevant product market or relevant and in the relevant geographic market. So relevant product market definition, which means that the competition is assessed at a very narrow level, narrow product level. And we know that most of the firms are multi-product, and they are producing a lot of products. And mostly this assessment is made to see whether there is any overlap, that is called a horizontal overlap or vertical overlap exists in the production process while consummating the deal. Then ownership of firm is not a concern under the new regime. So it is not only in the case of, to my understanding, it is not only the case of India. So it's a new competition regime wherever adopted. I think this is applicable to all other countries as well, because the competition assessment is made at the narrow level product market. And this may lead to further concentration of economic assets in the hands of big business groups due to the diversified nature of groups and also a large number of affiliated companies of these groups. The use of M&As by business groups might be leading to aggregate concentration, which may not be revealed in the narrowly defined markets. And one point made by Ayal Adi becomes important in this context. That is, though economic power is the heart of antitrust, the competition assessment is based on narrowly defined markets and quantifiable evidence in general, and generally ignore the political ramifications and the social harms caused by the economic power. And compared to the standalone firms, M&As undertaken by business groups affiliates may create better synergies also. There is also a positive side to it because business groups are also facing a lot of issues in the current context. So for them, this is a good strategy also to become more competitive. Due to the diversified nature and the existence of forward and backward linkages in operation, and this in turn may have further implications on future competition. This shows how the when the business group, when we take the business group as a whole, we can see that there will be a lot of affiliated companies within this, and these routes show the affiliated companies, and they are tied together or they are interlinked. So they have a lot of synergies between. But when the M&As are happening, again, this synergies creation will be much, much more compared to the standalone firms going for merger. And CCI is Competition Commission of India is engaged in discharging the role of competition regulation, but concentration of assets in few hands, it is not a concern for the Competition Commission because it is not part of its assessment. Then as per the new act, the dominance per se is not bad, but the abuse of dominance is treated as bad. Dominance may be arising out of efficient operation or through exercising monopoly power also. So in the open economy framework, dominance of domestic firms is supported on the ground of creating globally competent firms. The more powerful argument in favor of antitrust is antitrust law reduces the political power of firms, which is rarely met. This is a point made by Singals. Then business groups are, I have already pointed out. So there is a trade-off emerges between the positive and negative aspects of use of M&A strategy by the big business groups. So this study is an investigation into these aspects. Now, first part of the study, I was looking at the business groups in India. In this, I have discussed about the concepts and how business groups are defined and all those things, which I am not focusing in today's presentation. And I'm only trying to give a brief overview of how significant they are in terms of number and whether they are investing in large-sized or medium-sized business, and are they investing in technology intensive sectors, and what kind of economic activity in which they are engaging in. Let's skip this. Okay. In this table, we can see very clearly the this is before entering into the results, I will just say a few words about the data used for this study. This is basically for business groups. We have used Provus data. Actually, we tried to create our own list of business group affiliated companies, but later we found that the Provus coverage is much higher than the list we created. So then again we want to use Provus database for the financial information and all. So that's why I stick to the Provus database only. And they are identifying top 50 business groups and also the larger business groups in India. So and based on that, we have done most of the analysis on business groups. And from the M&A side, I have used venture intelligence database, and there is no database which gives data directly on the M&As undertaken by business groups. So what I have done is case by case, I have used the list from top 50 business groups list from Provus database, and that I applied with the venture intelligence and created a list of M&As based on that. So from this table, we can see this is the total number of firms registered with Provus. That is 48,916 firms registered, and out of that 72% can be classified as standalone private Indian firms, and only around 25% of firms can be treated as a business group affiliated firms. Out of that, Provost classified 7.5% of the firms as the top 50 group firms. And over time, from this graph, from this figure, we can see that there is standalone firms. There is a they are gradually increasing in terms of number, but the business group firms, if we consider, they are declined. They are showing a declining trend. Up to 2000, up to the year 2000, we can see that kind of a declining trend in terms of number. And then business group firms, sorry, this same declining trend is even applicable for the top 50 business groups as identified by Provost also. And next question is where these business firms, group firms are entering. And for this we have, this is pink color shows the large business groups, large business, and green shows medium, and the other one shows small business. So what we can see is that only around on an if you are taking, this is based on the incorporation years of the firms, and in total, if you are taking the overall years average, then we can say around 28% of the firms are entering into the large sized business, whereas around 71% of them are either entering into lower or medium type of business. So over the years, business, and we can see that this kind of the earlier period, like 50s or 50s to 70s and all, there was more frequency of firms were going for the large scale business, which now it is coming down. And this similar trend can be seen in the case of top 50 business groups also. So I'm not spending time. And this this will also show the same thing. That is a larger. This is 1950 is inside graph. This shows that more than around 50% were going for the large scale business earlier, which is now coming down, and now it is only around 16%. Then whether they are investing in technology intensive sectors, it is the next question we have asked, and we have used the OECD technology intensity classification July 2011 for classification, and they are classifying the 4 categories: high, medium, low, and low. And what we have seen is that irrespective of the group affiliation, firms are investing more on medium and low tech business. And in terms of number terms, more than 70% of the firms in either they are investing in medium low tech or low tech business. And the low tech is more than 40% within this. And this same trend is applicable for the sales-based or asset-based analysis also. So that means they are concentrating in the medium low tech or low tech business. Then these firms are mainly around 70% of the business group firms are engaged in service sector activities, and the presence in manufacturing sector is only 28%. So this is even applicable to the standalone firms also. But the point is that these firms are the ideally the manufacturing sector should run with these firms, but these firms are mainly focusing on the service sector, and that too in financial services, insurance, pension, etc., trading, etc. And in the case of top 50 firms, they are investing on software services. But others case, they are even investing on the other groups. They are even investing in real estate and those kind of activities. And private, even the standalone firms are also showing a similar kind of trend. So this may be the reason for the low, the manufacturing sector, the low share of firms in the manufacturing sector. Now coming to the concentration of economic assets, as I have already pointed out, business group, business power and economic power has been one of the major issues raised during the earlier period, during the MRTP regime, and business power can be measured using various indicators, but economic power cannot, and that is a qualitative concept. And Government of India appointed the Monopoly Inquiry Commission under the chairmanship of Justice K.C. Das Gupta in 1964. And this report has come up with two important concepts, that is industry-wise concentration as well as country-wise concentration, where the study found that the asset share of 75 business groups in all non-government and non-banking companies is 47%, while the share based on paid capital, it is 44%. And similarly, they have also pointed out the industry-wise or product-wise concentration. It is very high. They have used the C3 measure, that is a three-firm concentration ratio, and based on that, they have pointed out that out of the 100 products, 65 products, very high level of concentration in terms of production, product level concentration was observed, and that was mainly for the products which are very much important for the consumers. This can be seen, 65 products in various categories. And in that context, we have asked, we are trying to answer whether this similar kind of concentration still exists in the among the business groups. And for that, we have used three indicators, that is assets, sales, and profit share. And we try to see how much these firms are controlling in each of these indicators. And in terms of assets, what we have seen is that group total, the share we can see from this, in the group as a whole, the share was only 56% in 1990, which is now 64%. That means it increased the group as a whole. Then top 50, if you are taking, it was 35% was their share, which declined to 25%, which shows the other groups in the other groups are now increasing their asset share. And there is the standalone firms, it declined from 44 to 36%. So the point is 25%. I have already mentioned that they are only 25% of the total number of firms in the sector, in the corporate sector, and out of that, they control 64% of the asset share. Then this we have done based on sales also. Sales it is showing where the declining trend is showing. 50 group share it declined from 57% to 52, and top 50 was also declining. We can see 35 to now it is 35%, but in 2017 it was 24 only. And whereas the share of standalone firms increased to 48% from 43%. The same thing when we compare regarding the profit share, what we can see is that profit share, we can see that in some years, like if you are taking 99, 98 or 2002, around 78 or 75% of the total profit share was going for, from the group-based, was for the group-based firms. So in general, it is more than 55% now. So out of this, 31% coming from the top 50 firms, top 50 group firms. So in some years, more than 54% of the profit share is generated by the top 50 group firms. So top 50 firms, group firms are more profitable than the other group firms, you can say in general. Which are the top business groups in India, and this is in terms of the sales share we have taken. So 3-year moving average of sales value is done, and so what we can see, it's obviously it was Tata Group overall it is showing, but in recent years Reliance is coming top with the 16% of the sales share, and Tata is coming second with 13%. And Adani was not in the list. It was there, but it was not in the top 10 list, which is now in the 6th position, 2.2%. Now, this can be seen, this is the trend, same thing which I have shown. So the message from so far is that we need to channelize the business group activities towards more productive and technology-oriented sectors, And the less number of business groups have a substantial share in output and profit. So in 2018, asset share was 67, sales share 52, and profit share 52, and that was for 25% of all firms in the sector. Next, coming to the M&A activities of the business groups. So when I have already said the synergy creation for synergy creation and market expansion through M&As are much more to the business group, as it consists of a multiple array of units with a large number of conglomerate products. And most of the target firms are also multi-product, and very often they concentrate on the production of products in the same and related value chain, and the acquired resources can also be used for efficiently to the appropriate unit of production, and which will generate forward and backward linkages for the business group compared to the standalone firms. So business group affiliation along with M&As makes it easy to withstand competition from other firms also. So this same database I have used, and 43 we have information. I have already said I have applied the powers data on top 50 business groups with the venture intelligence data, and we have information on 43 business group we got from venture intelligence data, and they are appearing in 1083 transactions, and out of this 352 are sale of asset and such minority deals, and the rest, that is 731 transactions, can be counted as a majority transactions. Okay, which are the groups which are engaging in top number of deals? And this is basic. Out of this 731 deals, Tata, Reliance, and Mahindra are the major deal makers, we can say, and they make 34% of the overall deals, overall M&As undertaken. And the sectors which are the sectors in which they are involving M&As more. Mainly it is IT enabled sector. IT enabled sector is the major sector, which 18% of the transactions are accounted for by this, and followed by automobiles, basic metals, etc. And within IT enabled sector, it was mainly the HCL and Wipro was making more deals. Within automobiles, it was Mahindra and Tata, top deal makers, and they accounted for more than 50% of all transactions in the sector. And within basic metals, 25 out of 48 deals belong to Tata and OP Jindal. So Tata has 14 and OP Jindal has 11 transactions in each. Okay, some other observations. Tata consolidated in 23 sectors, Birla in 22 sectors, and Reliance in 16, Mahindra in 14, and so on. And the top business groups are top in consolidation activities too, and the top business groups remained as acquirers rather than targets. And as acquirer, there were 508 transactions were in 508 transactions they were acquirers. And it is seen that top consolidation in intensive groups like Tata, Mahindra, Godrej, etc., they are also present in a good number of outbound transactions also. And we have also noticed the presence of a large number of unlisted firms in M&As transactions. Business groups and how it is, and now it is, we are trying to link with the market competition. And what is the and one point is that competition affects via business group consolidation. There are if we take the literature on M&As, we can see that there is a discussion on horizontal mergers, vertical mergers, and conglomerate deals. So deals are classified into that kind of a classification based on where they are consolidating their operation, whether in the same products line or vertical or conglomerate. The same kind of discussion we can even see in the business group literature, that these are the diversification for the business group diversification strategies they can achieve through either through horizontally diversify or vertically or in conglomerate dimension. So the central idea, basic aim behind the M&A formation as well as the business group formation, there are some similarities in that. So that is basically the firms are trying to increase their profit or reduce their cost of production, or increase their market presence. All these things can be achieved being part of a business group, or it can be achieved through the M&A strategy as well. So that's why the firms and their business groups, when they're going for M&As, their purpose and their purpose will be better served under both the from both point of view. So here I'm trying to understand the presence of multiple affiliate companies in the same business line, then ownership wise concentration, and some case reviews we have done. So first point is regarding the presence of affiliated companies, and this is the point mentioned by Rajat Majumdar study 2008 ISID study. So many groups have multiple number of affiliates operating in the same business segment, and so what we have seen that still now also this same trend can be seen. And Tata has 18 companies in basic metals, 13 in machinery, and 23 in motor vehicles. And same is with the Mahindra. Then OP Jindal case, it is 19 companies they have in the basic metals segment within that. So then all affiliates are not contributing, but these affiliates are not, all of them are not contributing to substantial sales revenue, but they provide backward and forward linkages within the same segment. And here we try to measure the ownership wise concentration, and here the point made by Chowdhury 1975 study on product wise concentration is important. He mentioned that though the product wise concentration is important and reveals a glimpses of the nature and extent of concentration of economic power, it is inadequate for a full understanding of the problem. As the economy grows, the product-wise concentration may show declining trend, and most importantly, the economic power exercised by the top business groups is not only on a particular product or a group of product, but over a large number of economic activities. So normally when we assess competition, it is done at the firm level. So, but in this case, what we are trying to do is the ownership-wise concentration, how it changes. So that is what we want to know. So, and this is important because many of the business groups have multiple affiliates within the same segments, which we have already seen, and they are also present in multiple sectors and ownership. So that's why ownership-wise concentration becomes important. So we examined this for 3 subsectors, that is basic metals, machinery, and automobiles. This is based on the number of M&As and other things. And further, within these sectors, we have tried to disaggregate because the competition assessment now they normally does at the narrow level. So, for example, in the ferrous, we have used from basic metals. Ferrous metals is used from basic metals. I will show that data. This can be seen that there are the 2 major groups, that is Tata groups and OP Jindal group exist in the ferrous metal segment. Of that, we can see that the sales based ratio, if we are seeing Tata's share, Tata as a group, I am saying their share is declining from 15 to 14%. But OP Jindal, if you see, their share was 3%, which is now gradually increased to 20%. So these 2 groups, and if we take only the top firms, normally we do the firm level analysis, firm level competition ratio. And in that case, if we measure concentration, then the Tata Steel, which is the top firm, the share will be only 9.5% in the recent year. And JSW is the top firm from OP Jindal, which share will be only 10%. So together around 20% concentration will be shown for the top 2. But if we take it as a group, for Tata and OP Jindal as a group, if we are taking, the current concentration will become 34.7%. So the point we want to say is that the group, when in competition assessment, if we are taking only the firm level, then the concentration levels will be low, but same groups affiliated companies should also be taken into account. this same trend can be seen for the asset-wise figures also. It is now it is 42%. Two groups control 42% of the asset share of the ferrous metal segment. So this is the same thing which we can see how Tata and OP Jindal is increasing their share in terms of assets and sales. But this is not true for this increasing trend is not true for all sectors. Okay, sorry, one more point I want to say. It is regarding the foreign presence within the ferrous metal segment. So what we have seen is that wherever the group-based, the top groups or the group-based firms are increasing their presence, the foreign companies' presence is very limited. But wherever the groups are not there, the foreign presence will increase. That's what we can see here also. The foreign presence is only very limited. This is the bottom line. So we can see in this sector, both the standalone firms as well as the group firms, top 4 groups are increasing their shares. But this trend is not same for the motor vehicle sector. From that we have used a trailer and a semi-trailer. And what we have observed is that there is a substantial decline in the share of top business groups from 63 to 28%. And there is an increasing presence of foreign-owned and standalone firms in the sector. But here also the basic point is that if you are taking the firm-wise concentration, even this much figures will not come. But now it is showing 26% for the top 4 groups, and if you are taking only the affiliated companies, then it will be much less than this. This shows the foreign presence is increasing. Foreign presence is increasing over the years, whereas this top group presence is declining. Then the same exercise for parts and accessories we have done. And here also the declining trend is visible, and foreign presence, basically it is standalone firms are increasing their share, and foreigners are also slightly they are also increasing. And next is the transport equipments, where again the increased trend is visible. That is top firms, group-based firms. If you are taking the top 4, 47% was their share, which is now 60%, 59.6% now. So this increasing trend, I have shown the first figure, and the second figure shows that here we can see clearly the foreign presence is very limited, and the presence of group firms are high. Machinery sector, again, it is showing a declining trend, and the foreign presence is increasing. So next, what we have done is a qualitative review of the deals undertaken by Tata in steel and Mahindra in automobiles. And this, I'm not presenting each of the deals because it will be very time consuming. The major outcome of this is that Tata, these deals helped Tata in expanding capacities not only in various overlapping products within the basic metals, but also helped in vertical line of business in which other group affiliates are engaged. And such vertical linkages are also projected, reducing the cost of intermediary goods used by affiliate companies, and which is obviously a good business model. Consolidation was crucial in getting access to various new market locations across the globe, to strengthening market leadership, access to cheap raw materials, and so on. So in general, the acquisitions are beneficial not only for the particular affiliate firm, but also the group as a whole, since a group is a diversified unit with the forward and backward linkages. And these observations are equally applicable to Mahindra's acquisition in automobiles. Mahindra purchased many JV partners and used acquisitions to diversify and strengthen the competitiveness in the automobile segment. The capacities acquired in auto components, tractor, and such business gives vertical linkages in the sector. Mahindra could expand its various automobile and auto component products to various locations outside India through M&As, and it resulted in huge capacity expansion in many instances. And technology was also an idea behind some of the deals, but many deals are having great prospects through deriving vertical linkages with the other Mahindra's affiliated companies. And M&A was often used to achieve the group's goal of providing comprehensive service under one umbrella. Now, this is the key message from the study. The competition regulation is dealing with the market control and thereby focusing on the concept of economic efficiency and not comprehensively on social fairness. And there are, when we take the case of competition assessment, we can see that there are business groups are not they are not concentrating in all sectors. There are sectoral variations, but there are some sectors in which they are increasing their presence also. So wherever the presence of business groups decline, there has been an increasing presence of foreign firms. Standalone firms are also increasing their presence in these areas. So this may be a reason for the less concentrated structure in those sectors too. And nevertheless, the market shares are higher when we consider the affiliate companies as a group rather than as individual firms. And this may be the reason why these firms could sustain in the market compared to the standalone firms. So M&As has been contributing to not only the capacity and market expansion, but also to vertical linkages to the product profile of the business groups and acquired assets of financially, and these are based on the cases we have examined. Acquired assets of the financially distressed targets are also contributing to strengthen the market position of some of the groups. And the umbrella of business groups helps not to be taken over also. And M&As should be strategically used by the groups to become globally competitive and strengthen their position in sectors where technology-oriented sectors and other core sectors with employment and growth potential. And also it is an opportunity to acquire strategic resources abroad and provide complementarities to the MSMEs rather than competing with them. But only thing is that the regulators should ensure that the economic and political power of groups in various sectors are not leading to market imperfections. Thank you.
Thank you, Veena, for sharing with us the overview of your work on these business groups and mergers and acquisitions. Now, let us hear from our three very eminent panelists. And the first on my list is Mr. Augustine Peter, who has been a member of the Competition Commission of India, which is, as we know, is a successor of MRTP Commission. And Augustine has been a member of Indian Economic Service, and currently he is a visiting fellow at RIS, and Augustine has been an old friend for many years. So Augustine, very happy to have you, and you have a practitioner's perspective, because having served on the Competition Commission of India, which deals with this issue. So we are very, very keen to hear from you, on this presentation and your views otherwise. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Nagesh. I am very happy to be part of this discussion. And we had an excellent presentation by Dr. Veena. It has been a very comprehensive presentation. And I was keenly listening to that. I am very much impressed by the volume of data she has analyzed and drawn a number of conclusions. I will given the limited 7 minutes allocated to me, I'll be just confining my comments basically to certain policy and regulatory issues, especially related to Competition Act and related areas. So the study actually highlights the positives of M&A and consolidation, including scaling, complementarities, synergy, cost reduction, etc. So there is no doubt regarding the beneficial effects of consolidation. But the study comes back again and again to the issue of concentration vis-a-vis inequality, increase in inequality, which is noticed even now. Even though in the 60s, when it was noticed and by a number of studies, India reacted with the License Raj and MRTP Act and number of regulations curbing the so-called animal spirit of entrepreneurs. The basic issue is, what was the end result? The end result was that ultimately we had a standard industrial growth with certain firms basically producing ambassadors and the like. So ultimately, the reaction we had to inequality at that point of time, was it effective? And what is the type of reaction we should have to inequalities which may be appear to be growing from the study and even otherwise? What are the types of, so basically these are the things we should be looking at. So now one or two, a few issues, I think there are 7 minutes, maybe 6 or 7 issues I will look at a bit closely and very limited. So the first issue is basically the Competition Commission of India is engaging in discharging the role of competition regulation, but the concentration of assets in few hands is not within its purview. And I am sure that it is understandable that while the concentration itself is not treated, that is, the philosophy has taken a sort of a drastic change with the 1991 reforms. And basically the idea is that, and that is the philosophy based on which Competition Act was also drawn up. That means dominance or concentration itself is not bad, but its abuse is. That's why abuse of dominance and its curtailment, that has been made an important ingredient of competition law enforcement in the country. So we have to read merger regulation. Merger is only a regulation because merger, amalgamation, acquisition of control. These are basically the birthrights of entrepreneurs or industry. Nobody can question that. Only thing is that where there is we will see the difference when abuse of dominance is controlled, anti-competitive agreements are controlled, merger is only regulated. That means in case there are some anti-competitiveness, that is limiting of competition, that is all over the world, then the competition authority intervenes. So that is the basic philosophy, and therefore it is natural that directly reducing competition in assets, which is neither desirable, concentration of assets, which I feel is neither desirable, and that is not being done also. Because as has been found by Dr. Bina, consolidation has got its own merits, its own advantages. Now, second issue which I could find is the involvement of big business is very low in high-tech activities, which is an important finding, because I am sure that she has taken into account the various players, including unicorns and all. But the larger conglomerates in India, yes, they are confined, they are tied to the sort of high profitable and well-established areas. That is something which should be taken note of. But at the same time, yes, she is also emphasizing that M&As, it should be left to MSMEs for yes, government policy. We have been seeing that to sort of endow and enable MSMEs. At the same time, I am sure that the study should also must have taken into account the huge investments the large conglomerates like Reliance has been making recently, for example, 75,000 crores in enabling India to become net zero compatible. At the same time, groups like Adani and all. So I think this is something which is data. She is coming out with a conclusion, which I think we should take note of. Inequality is a running theme in the study. And basically, there are two aspects I would like to say regarding that. Concentration, does it lead directly to inequality? Is there any data which is linking, for example, linking a causal relationship between concentration and inequality? I am not sure. I just scanned through the study. Maybe I think she will be able to respond. But at the same time, I find that the modern system compared to the 50s and 60s, now we have a stock market regime where most of the companies, major companies are listed, and stock markets act as a control over enterprises because their image, their value is reflected on a day-to-day basis, and the barometer is there. And they are also basically and there is also reference to the promoter holding, with the result that with a small holding, they are controlling. But I think ever since Swaraj Kohl came to the scene, I think, I don't know which time, which era in the 80s maybe, I think to take over a Delhi-based company, I think all the conglomerates and large firms, they have been raising the stake. I was just today morning looking at Tata Sons holding in their companies. In Tata TCS, it is quite substantial, about 60%. This is what I have seen. I hope I am, and Dr. Nagesh will be the best person to correct. And in other companies, I think many of them in 37, around 35 to 40. So this is something which I think the old argument that they are with small holding of 6-7%, they are, I think that may not be that valid now. And these basically many of these major companies, I have also noticed that they are acting as a factory of young entrepreneurs, which is a positive which we may have to remember. They also reinvest. This is another aspect. I think this study I will be suggesting later should be extended to see to what extent you are concentrating, accumulating wealth. Wealth creators have to be appreciated. So when they accumulate, what are they doing? There are some, yes, IBC has exposed some who have been siphoning off. But there are many respectable firms which are actually reinvesting, which are basically creating more wealth. A study has to be done, whether concentration and concentration-related accumulation, are they exploitative of consumers or are they also basically leading? See, when do we say, for example, there is a Ronaldo in football, when he is scoring more and more goals, do we say that no, he is unfair? We always put a rules of the game. Is he playing according to the rules of the game of the football? And if he is scoring, he has to score. That is the glory of the game. So I think that is another aspect which maybe I thought I should highlight, which I am sure that everybody is agreeable. It's not a new point. They reinvest and create. So they are the best paymasters again. Inequality, how it comes. Is it because Tatas are paying low that inequality is increasing in India? Is it because Reliance is paying low? They are one of the best paymasters. I have seen, I think, good old days, one advertisement by Tata's. We also make steel. That means their main concern is with the employees and their welfare. We also make steel. That was their advertisement, which attracted a lot of attention. So I think that this is something which is, at the same time, yes, we had an industrial policy. They speak in different parts of the world, return of the industrial policy. Are we to look at that? Or is it time for India? Because India always used to lag behind. When everybody was opening up, we were closing. When everybody is closing, are we opening up? So I think this is something which which I am leaving it for because of the limited time. Another issue which is basically has been raised is that is I think related to competition regulation. See, generate maximum consumer welfare. That is the target of competition principles, which is focused on market fairness rather than the concept of social fairness. Yes, I think the basic way of thinking, I think the same way of thinking for us should be that Competition Act and competition policy, this is one of the instrumentality of government policy. This is one of them. So every ill in the society cannot be, I think, addressed by competition policy, competition law. So I think we have also social issues. There are ways already the Constitution of India provides for it. Reservations are there. Every government, central government, state government is coming with a lot of social schemes aimed at the marginalized sections, women and minorities, and also all these issues have to be, I think, social issues. Invariably, it was not envisaged nowhere except I have seen that in South Africa, because of the apartheid and all sort of segregation they used to have, Competition Act refers to the backward this thing in one sense, and they also take into account that aspect. That is only place where that type of angle is there. Otherwise, even European Union with all its interest in sustainable development, they have not yet built in that aspect into competition law. Now, the rule of reason is the main approach for merger. Yes, rule of reason, that means weighing the pros and cons. Because everything, they say, even a mother takes the child in its hand, the softest hands. There also the child may not be most comfortable, but then you have to take into account the pros and cons. Just because child is uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that mother does not have to feed it. So like that, the pros and cons, that is rule of reason. Earlier, the system was per se. That means if you cross the red light, then that is punishable. Whether there was anybody there, whether it was midnight, no. If you cross the red light, then you are punishable. That type of system has gone. Yes, in India, we are following in the case of abuse of dominant position. The per se rule still applies, which is an exception in India. Now, what point I have to make here is that, see, even within competition law, merger is one of the instrumentalities within competition law. There is the issue of the control, these conglomerates, large companies, large groups can be controlled by other measures because there is abuse of dominance, especially predatory pricing. Because in India, the competition law emphasizes exclusionary and exploitative both conduct by dominant or large or this type of large conglomerates or even by large firms. So this predatory pricing in particular, because that is one way in which the dominance or the market power or concentration is abused. So that is very rigorously applied in competition law. So we have to read, I think, both together. So now another issue is which has been raised, which I think Competition Act mainly deals with the case-by-case analysis of M&As on relevant product market competition rather than dealing with ownership-wise, which I think genuinely, I think Pina has raised this issue. But my understanding over a period of, because I've been working on competition issues for a very, very long time, even before joining Competition Commission. So basically, these two tend to coincide. Whether you are addressing the issue of ownership the aggregate or the product market. Basically, what happens now, if you take the example of car market, when I am asked a question, I am going or I am telling you that, or anybody, that I am purchasing a car. What do you have in mind? Which car? Is it Maruti 800? Is it Mercedes Benz? Is it something else? See, the car doesn't make any sense. A product you have to narrow, because to accuse somebody of cartelization or even basically of abuse of dominance, you have to narrow the market, because you cannot say that who is dominant in the car market. How do you say in which segment? In certain segment, Maruti is dominant. In certain other high value or luxury segment, somebody else may be dominant. So you have to, I think this is something which has been well established, even though I think at one look, there may be some, I am not going to elaborate because of the time constraint. Another issue which has been raised is assets in the hands of business groups due to diversified nature of groups and a large number of affiliated firms. This in turn may impact future product to competition. I think basically the issue is, I think we have already discussed. See, I think I would like to just bring to sort of attention. In Competition Act, there is even a provision for division of enterprise. In case a company with or enterprise with a dominant position basically reduces to or boils down to concentration in a particular product market in a geographical area, which is an established. If we are able to bring a new concept, I think that is a subject for a Nobel Prize. I think we should all be happy about that. But the basic issue what I want to drive home is that division of enterprise, Section 28 provides for that. Even that such type of extreme sort of penalties available at the disposal of competition authority. So it is that is addressing concentration not as such, but when it is abused. Concentration as such, because I think there is long debate regarding R&D, whether it promotes innovation. So there are a lot of history, economists can debate for days and nights. That is, I think we are not entering into that. The next issue I think I could find, unless I am exceeding the time, though Competition Commission of India is engaging, discharging the role of competition regulator, Congress, I think we have addressed that, so I don't want to go into that again. Social fairness, that also we have looked at. I think I am, for the time being, I am going to stop here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Augustine. Very good points. I'm sure Bina has benefited a lot from your comments and suggestions and remarks. I think what Augustine has highlighted is that things have changed dramatically since 1960s, when this was a dominant discussion, that concentration of economic power and its potential abuse. One of the redeeming factors is the openness of the Indian economy. Now, foreign players, foreign exporters are there. So somebody who is producing here doesn't have absolute kind of access to the market. There are possibilities of somebody importing. So that by itself limits the extent one can exercise market power if one has. Anyhow, let me turn to our next panelist, Professor Pulak Mishra. Pulak Mishra, has been teaching at the Indian Institute of Technology, the very famous IIT at there's campus in Kharagpur. And he has, over time, I was looking at his list of publication. He has worked on many different issues, including on mergers and acquisitions. And so I'm sure his perspective coming from an academic would have something Very interesting. So over to you, Professor Mishra. You are muted.
Thank you, Professor Kumar, for inviting me and giving this opportunity to participate in this webinar and to speak on Dr. Bina. I must congratulate Dr. Bina for such a very comprehensive work, and the work has been carried out very systematically across different dimensions, different aspects of M&As by different business groups, as well as by individual firms, standalone firms. Many of the issues have been already pointed out by Dr. Augustine Peter. I'm not repeating those aspects. But from analytical point of view, I would like to add certain points what Dr. Bina can think of. And I think these issues may be important, particularly for further research in this line and also for drawing the policy and regulatory implications. So one important aspect is to see the implications of mergers and acquisitions by business groups in a short-run perspective versus a long-run dimension. So an important issue in this connection may be the debate that is there in the literature on M&As. That is basically the efficiency gains versus concentration of market power or emergence of market power, what Dr. Kumar was pointing out. So issue is here, I mean, how should we look at when we go for assessing M&As, whether we should see it from a short-term perspective or we should see how short-run gains can influence the other type of gains in the long run. Say, for example, a particular deal may raise efficiency, may enhance efficiency in the short run, but subsequently it may lead to emergence of monopoly power. It may happen in other way also. Maybe in the medium term, a particular deal would result in monopoly power, but if that monopoly power is subsequently translated into higher innovation and spillover, say export market penetration, so there may be some kind of efficiency gains also in the long run, which may emerge from the gain of monopoly power in the short run. So my point here is that whether we can see in totality in a time dimension of 30 years that Dr. Bina has concentrated on, or we should see in phase-wise, say what has happened immediately and what has happened subsequently. I think that sort of understanding would be very, very important, particularly to draw a causal linkage between M&As and the subsequent changes. Second very important point that Dr. Bina can think of, basically using data only on the number of deals or the number of firms, because all the deals of M&As may not be of the same size. And whatever little work I have done in this area, I have seen that the deals, it varies widely. So whether we should stick to only the number of deals or we should also look at the size of the deals, I think size of the deals would give a better picture as compared to only looking at the number of deals. And here I would also like to add one more point. I understand that to have very, very comprehensive data set on size of deals. I mean, a very, very fundamental question here is that when we are talking about size of deals, and then there are numbers, the question is how to standardize for the comparison purpose. So that issue is there, but even then, in addition to looking at the number of deals, the size of the deals would add some more dimensions, some more aspects, and also provide some useful insights. Third point is basically the analytical approach. I mean, whatever changes we could see because of M&As by the group companies or the business groups, can we necessarily contribute those changes to M&As? What about the other business strategies? What about the industry level policy changes? We are talking about the shift from MRTPA to the Competition Act, but that is happening at a broader macro level. But there have been many important aspects of investment, in respect of trade, in respect of technology purchase. So industry specific dimensions, when we are talking about, these issues are very, very important. So we need to see whether we can derive one-to-one causal relationship from, say, M&A to the changes that we are talking about, or we should also need to have certain control variables. And one such dimension may be the industry specific changes. And I would also like to add one more point. Different industries are having different characteristics. And what I could see through going through the report, of course, I had a very quick look at the report, that the implications are not in the same direction across different industries. So what Dr. Bina has done in her work, she has focused on a particular business domain. Actually, there are 3 levels of analysis that she has carried out. One is the broader picture, then the scenario at a particular industry level, and then some firm specific or business group specific observations. Now, when we are talking about a very specific industry, I think to some extent, the overall observations may be misleading in the sense that different industries are having different characteristics, different policy implications. So if what happens, say for example, what happens if I compare these observations with another industry like, say, drugs and pharmaceutical, which has also been competitive, which has also seen entry of many foreign firms and subsequently Indian firms taking control over the market. So this
We can't hear you, Professor Mishra.
Dr. Augustine Peter was talking about. Sorry.
I think there is some technical problem. Professor Mishra's voice I am not able to hear. I don't know if others are able to hear. No. Okay. Well, in that case, let me turn to our third panelist. That is Mr. Amol Kulkarni. Amol is a director of research at CUTS International. And CUTS International, as we know, is a consumer-focused organization, but it does a lot of research, policy advocacy, and and activism.
There was some.
It's a civil society organization, and so I'm sure his perspective would add a lot of value to this discussion. So Amol, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, and many congratulations, Dr. Bina, for the splendid work that you have carried out. Am I audible clearly?
Yes.
Just to check. Okay, thank you so much. So briefly, I largely agree with what Dr. Augustine Peter said and what Dr. Pulak Mishra was also saying. But I would like to concentrate on some of the key industrial, trade and competition policy lessons which perhaps have emerged or are likely to emerge as a result of this study, and some of the questions that could be further investigated through this research. And perhaps I would like to be a little bit more provocative in nature, so that this study could be further taken forward to its logical conclusion. So I think just starting with where Dr. Beena had started, that we started with the hypothesis that MRTP sort of said that the dominance is bad, and therefore the question should perhaps arise is that, given that MRTP said that dominance is bad, and therefore there was firms which were unable to deeply utilize their dominance into sort of monopoly, creating monopolies and benefiting from that, they perhaps uh, took another path of growth, which was horizontal growth, and therefore they sort of entered into a lot of mergers and acquisitions across the value chain, as Dr. Beena had also mentioned. Now, these value chains, as is sort of visible in the study, is in the inputs market as well. It's also in the areas of sort of transport and logistics. It's also in output market. So there are different nodes across the value chains in which these acquisitions have happened through large group companies. So the question that I wanted to ask, and perhaps the study could investigate, is that does such acquisitions of strategic acquisitions at different nodes in the value chain provides preferential treatment to the entities in the group company, and are the other firms which are there in the value chain in that sector not treated in the same level? So if there is a preferential treatment by, say, a firm which is acquired by a large sort of company in the source market, and therefore there is a sort of direct linkage between the manufacturing firm and the firm in the source market, whether that new acquisition is unfairly treating its other consumers. And that is a question that perhaps one could test from a competition perspective. Similarly, another question, and I think which came out from the study, was that a lot of acquisitions in the tech and other sectors have happened wherein these large companies are concentrating on mid and low tech sectors, which are perhaps crowding out small and medium enterprises. So the question is that whether by making dominance bad under MRTP and perhaps pushing these firms to diversify horizontally, was there an adverse impact on MSMEs, because these firms then sort of took on MSMEs. MSMEs were not able to compete with them in the relevant sectors, and MSMEs remained stunted and were not able to reach their sort of potential because of this horizontal push, which was or the horizontal acquisition which was taken by these bigger companies. This also brings us to an industrial policy question, because over the years, the government of India has been pushing for growth of MSMEs and providing incentives to MSMEs. Now, at one point of time, you are sort of trying to provide incentives to small and medium firms to grow. At other point, at another level, you are saying that big firms should sort of diversify and try to look at other firms in the value chain for acquisition, because you are saying that you cannot sort of create a monopoly in a particular domain wherein you're operating. So is there a conflict between these two policies? This is a question that could perhaps be investigated. Similarly, I think what Dr. Beena had said, that the study points out that areas wherein there is a high concentration of such business groups, there is a tendency of low sort of foreign firms' existence. And we know that the government of India over the years has been pushing in for sort of larger foreign investment, FDI within the country. So is there a lesson in which we need to sort of derive from this analysis in terms of uh, attracting foreign investment in specific sectors wherein these big firms are operating? Is there a case of regulatory capture and political influence by these firms in these sectors wherein they are operating as a result of horizontal acquisition in which foreign firms are not able to enter? Or there are less number of foreign firms which uh, in this sector, despite there being policy push uh, to attract foreign investment. Uh, there are a few other sort of lessons as well. For instance, the study sorts of highlights very neatly what are the nodes wherein acquisitions have been made in different sectors. Now, sort of hypothetically speaking, those acquisitions happened because the existing firms in those areas were not competitive enough, and therefore they were not able to sort of compete with these industries or these big firms. So the question is that whether the industrial policy or sector specific policies within those sectors was optimal enough to enhance competitiveness and enhance competition within those sectors, or are we facing sort of or is this acquisition strategy pointing us towards some policy areas or policy interventions so that we can or government can look to enhance competitiveness in these areas so that these smaller firms or other firms which are currently being acquired by the larger firms can sort of compete effectively with these firms. So, and we know from evidence that input markets such as sort of minerals and transport and logistic market and technology sectors, these are the areas in which adequate incentives are not presently available for sort of existing firms to invest and compete efficiently and enhance their competitiveness. So I think the study is also pointing us towards some of the industrial policy sort of priorities which the government of India should consider. I think another point which was made was the difference between sort of economic welfare and social welfare, and I completely agree with Dr. Augustine Peter, wherein he said that is there a evidence to actually show that the concentration or acquisition by large business groups is actually resulting into inequality. So I think this issue needs to be sort of further investigated. In addition to that, I think what needs to be done is uh, what are the other ways to address the social welfare and inequality problem, and are we doing enough in those areas? So as Dr. Peter also mentioned, that there are several other policies which are there to address some of these issues. However, sort of the current situation is that this without additional policy interventions, it looks like that existing policies are not resulting into social welfare. So can we expect competition regime to address something beyond economic welfare domain? I think that is something which is expecting too much from a competition regime, which is mostly reactive in nature. It's not proactive in nature, and therefore perhaps there is a need to look at other interventions, particularly going beyond competition law to areas of competition policy. The competition policy, and there is a draft national competition policy which is there on the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, which says that existing sector specific policies should also promote competition. So it is the obligation of sector regulators and departments to promote competition in their respective sectors so that firms can be competitive and sort of result in efficiency gains. And what we have seen in our studies is that there are several the competition distortionary provisions in sector-specific policies, which need to be weeded out for existing firms to compete and sort of efficiently enhance competitiveness and perhaps repel this trend of acquisition from larger group companies. And I think the last sort of couple of points which I wanted to make is that this trend of acquisition by large companies is likely to enhance as a result of pandemic, which has left our small and medium enterprises weakened. So perhaps that is an area which a study can also cover if there is, as and when there is a new data which comes in terms of pandemic and how that has impacted our small and medium enterprises. And the last point is that at one point of time, we are seeing that the new competition regime after the Competition Act is sort of promoting competitiveness and free market sort of economy. But increasingly, we are seeing that there are several policies like production-linked incentive schemes and other incentive schemes, which are sort of aiming to create national champions. And they are providing incentives to small a number of large companies. So, which perhaps would result into these incentives being taken by these large conglomerates. So, how do we sort of ensure consistency with the need to enhance competitiveness and protect competition, as Dr. Peter was saying, while also ensuring coherence with the Government of India's aim to create global national champions which could be competitive at a global scale. So I'll just stop here. Thank you very much for this opportunity and hope this helps.
Thank you, Amol, for bringing very interesting perspective on Bina's presentation. I'm sure she has taken note of all of them and will benefit from them. So I want to just, although we have run out of time, but I want to open up this discussion to the audience, and I see some hands being raised. So and I also wanted to check with Pulak if he had any concluding thoughts because he had to end his thing a bit abruptly because of technical reasons. So I will give him 1 minute. So let me see these hands being raised. And so first I will ask Indrani Chakrabarti, then Chanchal Chopra, because they are outside of ISID, and then our colleague Swati Verma. So Indrani, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Professor Kumar. Bina, can you go back to your slides where on basic metal, where we have shown that the two business groups, Tata Group and OP Jindal Group, are containing as total sales and assets, containing the shares of total sales and assets together to a large number, and it has increased from 1990 to 2019 largely. Yes, this one. From sales, Tata and OP Jindal's share of sales and assets increased from 1990, 18.3 to 34.7 and 17.2 to 41.7. So it implies that there has been a concentration of power at the hands of top two business groups. And my question is there any role of political lobbying behind it?
Ma'am,
yes. Yeah, I'm sure Bina will answer that. I'll give her the floor after listening to the other questions. So let me go to Chanchal Chopra then.
Thank you.
Good evening, Professor Nagesh and everyone present here. It has been a very informative presentation by Dr. Bina Saraswati. I would just like to ask her that she said if the wherever the share of business groups has declined, the foreign presence has increased. Though the causal relationship can throw more light on this, but I would like to ask her, can she highlight the sequence of events and the sectors for this trend?
Okay, good. Now let me turn to Swati Verma. Go ahead, please. Swati, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. You are muted now. So let me give the floor to Pulak Mishra because he had to end his remarks abruptly. So if you can take a minute to complete what you could not.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for getting disconnected because of the technical reason. Anyway, I just like to add a couple of more points to what I said earlier. The other point is basically in terms of measurement, the way Bina, you have measured concentration in the market. Basically, you have seen how or what is the market share, total market share of the top firms. But I would suggest, if possible, we can also think of computing certain standard indices of understanding market concentration. At the same time, what Dr. Peter was pointing out, it is also necessary to see the inequality. And I'm not here pointing out inequality at larger macroeconomic context, but I'm also seeing saying about the inequality for the industry itself. So there are also measures, standard measures about how market share is distributed across the different firms. See, say for example, Harfindel-Hitchman index, it basically gives an additive measure of market concentration, but it doesn't talk about the inequality that prevails across the firms. So you can also think of computing certain inequality indices, which will basically give us an insight about how different firms are placed following the mergers and acquisitions. The last point, what I would like to add here, yes, I mean, what a little work I have done in this work, my understanding is that mergers and acquisitions are not necessarily bad or necessarily harmful for the economy. At the same time, what Dr. Augustine Peter pointed out, the firms also have the liberty to go for various types of deals of mergers and acquisitions, be it horizontal, vertical, or a particular deal may also have several dimensions. Now, question here is basically how to make a comparative analysis of the two dimensions. The issues that may potentially cause monopoly power and subsequently they may harm the consumers, and the dimensions where the firms can gain efficiency. It may also result in higher export competitiveness, innovation. There may be technology spillovers. So how to make some such comparative analysis, that may be a very, very important issue to look at the deals of mergers and acquisitions instead of looking at it only from the perspective of market power. I'll conclude with one point. In fact, in my work, I have seen at macro level as well as for a particular industry, mergers and acquisitions have resulted in higher export competitiveness. So how to judge mergers and acquisitions from market concentration point of view, that is definitely very important. But as I say, there may be implications in different phases. What we see immediately may not be true in the long run or vice versa. That's all. That's all from my side. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Mishra, for adding some more points to your excellent discussion. Now I see Swati coming back. Go ahead, please. You are not audible again.
Okay. Now I'm audible, sir? Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks, please. So thanks to Beena for this wonderful presentation. I have one comment which is related to her inference on the foreign presence in 3 of the main manufacturing sectors which she has analyzed, which is based on Provis data. 99% of foreign subsidiary firms are unlisted in India, and they may not be covered by Provis adequately because Provis database mainly focuses on listed firms. That's what we understand. Though they do cover a lot of unlisted firms in recently. So also several large MNC firms, they delist voluntarily to escape the compliance to stringent disclosure norms of their financial operations. So Provis coverage may be a serious issue for foreign firms at least, and any inference on presence of foreign firms in a sector based on Provis may need to take this aspect of the database in account. My second point is mainly a query, which is related to the sectoral classification of firms, which I think Beena has used the Provis database. I just want to know whether she has used the predefined sectors or actual NIC or ITC codes of the main product, which also Provis happens to give, because the classification, which is based on predefined sectors, it's based on product which has contributed maximum share in total revenue in a given year. And this classification could be an issue for firms which are into multiple product manufacturing or engaged in trading activities also. And it was a serious issue for my study where the predefined sectoral classification did not match with ITC, HS code or NIC code of the main product for a particular firm. And many firms I had to reclassify as trading. So I just want to ask whether she has taken the predefined sectors or actual NIC, ITC main product code, and maybe a cross check would be useful or rather necessary depending on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Swati. So now I don't see any hands raised. So let me turn to Beena to just very quickly respond to some of the points. You don't have to respond to all, and mainly they are to help you to finalize the work. But whatever you wish to respond to, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, and thank you. Extremely thankful to all the discussants for giving a lot of insight, a lot of new ideas and all. Regarding Augustine Peter sir's comments, I completely agree with you most of the things, sir, because I was also not against M&As by business groups, in fact, but my point was the regulators should be more concerned about the ownership-wise consolidation also. They should, while assessing the deals, they should be like more concerned about these kind of strategies also. That was my point. So, other things I'm not responding to, sir. Then Pulak Mishra, sir, regarding the long run, short run point, that is of course that is true, and also deal from deal to deal, these kind of things will change. That agree with that. Value of deals, actually it is difficult to get the value of deals for all the M&As because even the venture intelligence data, they used to report like for most of the deals, they will not give the aggregate amount. Whenever there is a first transaction happens, then they will give, then second transaction they will give the second. So like that they used to give. So so that kind of data we cannot completely rely on. So that's why I didn't use that information. Then okay, different industries, different characteristics. I agree with that, all those points. Then, okay, next point regarding preferential treatment to a group company. I think that is an important point that I will also look into. Thank you for giving that idea. MSME side, actually my point was not there. I was trying to say that most of the business groups are entering into medium or low sized business. So that's why my point was, it was not linked to M&As at that point of time. So that's why my point was like, I did not present that here in this, I think, properly. So my point was like, these firms are ideally, they have all a kind of capital and all kind of support. So ideally they can take much more investment than entering into small scale business. That was my point actually. Then I think I missed some points. That regarding Indrani ma'am's point on political connection, I didn't do any study on, I didn't connect to the political side of it, so I'm not responding. So, okay, next question regarding the business group, like wherever the business group participation declined or the top business groups share declined, there is an emergence of FDI. So that I have shown already for the 5 sectors we have examined, except for the 2 sectors, all other 3 this is at the analysis is done at the very disaggregated level, and there what we have seen is that 2 sectors only the group's participation increased, where foreign participation is very low, and where the other 3 sectors where group participation declined, and their top groups, I'm saying, their participation where in other 3 sectors it declined, where we can see a clear increase in the foreign participation that I have already shown. If it is required, I will show the slide if time permits.
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And regarding Pulak sir's next questions on inequality, and Augustine Peter sir also asked that question on the link between inequality and concentration, whether it is leading to such kind of a relationship. Actually, I did not present some of the tables on the business group, like their presence in the billionaires index and how it is reflected in GDP and those kind of things. But the analytical relationship, I did not see that kind of a study. I think we can also try maybe in future. Then regarding unlisted firms, thank you, Sodhi, for the information. And for the NIC classification, whether we have done a standard classification, we have used the NIC 2008 for all the classifications, except for some cases where M&A based venture intelligence data used, but that was very limited. But for major analysis, we have used the NIC classification. Thank you. I think I may have missed some questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bina, for responding to some of the points which were raised. I think everyone will agree with me that we had a good presentation, very good discussion by 3 panelists, all bringing very complementary perspectives, with Augustine bringing the perspective of a practitioner, Pulak bringing an academic perspective, and Amol from a consumer organization. So between them, they covered a lot of ground. So I'm sure Bina will have, a lot of meat to kind of improve her work. And also the discussion brought some, open discussion also brought some interesting observations. So with that, I want to really thank Bina and all the 3 of our, eminent speakers for joining us and for giving us a very rich discussion. And I'm sure we will remain in touch with all of you, and as we move ahead with this study and others. So with that, thank you very much for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.